In this tutorial we'll have a look at a very simple yet very helpful setup that I like calling the Matte Paint Hub. The Matte Paint Hub crops a certain area of a high resolution image in order for that patch to be processed more efficiently, and then ensures that the processed patch drops right back into the original canvas. So let's assume this map here is way too big to actually pull into Photoshop or anything like that. In my case it's really just 4K wide, but in reality this might as well be something like 20K. So you don't want to pull this whole thing into Photoshop just because the client decided that, hey, we want some graffiti on those walls. So obviously the first thing you want to do is you want to crop the area of interest like that. And while we're here, let's actually examine how that crop node really works. So the X field simply determines the distance from the left side over here to the beginning of the bounding box, and the corresponding R value for right does the same thing for the right side. So that's the distance from the left side of frame to the right side of the crop box. And the same thing is true for Y and T. So the Y value is the value from the bottom of the frame to the bottom of the bounding box, and the T field is the distance from the bottom of the frame to the top of the bounding box. So if I subtract X from R, we get the actual width of the field, or if I subtract Y from T, we get the actual height of our crop area. And that's exactly what you get when you click on the WH button. So this now shows you the width and the height along with the XY coordinates down here. And if you uncheck it, it shows you the XY coordinates beginning at the lower left corner of the frame of your crop box, and also the upper right coordinates, which are the R and the T values. With that in mind, let's go ahead and reformat that to actually reduce the amounts of pixels and render that out for our matte painters. And once they're done painting, we'll have a look at how to drop this back into our original map. So here's the first iteration of our matte painting. It's got our graffiti slapped onto the walls, and it also comes with an alpha channel in here now. So let's go ahead and pre-mold that and slap it straight onto our background. Obviously this is not going to position it anywhere near where it needs to be, but we just looked at the crop node and we now know that the X and Y values, let me just uncheck this to see it in context of the frame, the X and Y values represent the lower left corner of this box in relation to the lower left corner of our frame. So that means we can just use those XY values to offset our patch to make it match exactly the area that we cropped in the beginning. So the obvious choice for this might be the transform node, but we only need XY translation really, and the translate node actually filters subpixels according to your filter list. So if you accidentally punch in floating point numbers or comma values, then you introduce filtering to your image, and we don't really want to do that because we really just want to position that patch by the same amount that the crop used when it extracted the patch. So instead of using the transform node, I like using the position node in this case, which is also in the transform menu, and that is a very simple XY offset control, and any floating point numbers in here will be rounded to the next integer. So this node ensures that you always move your image by a full amount of pixels, and therefore you never filter or decrease the quality of your patch just by positioning it. And because we know that the box X and Y values in the crop node give us exactly what we need, I'm just going to command drag the X field from the crop box into the translate, and do the same with Y. Control drag over, and that creates our expression links. So if I switch on the expression arrows, we can now see that the crop node drives the positioning of the returning matte paint patch. And as you can see, that drops right into the spot where it should be. So that's cool, but the problem now is that if I actually want to work on this setup here before merging it onto my background, it's kind of impossible because we've just moved our pixels away from our format, so the bounding box still keeps track of those pixels, but we can't see them in context of our comp anymore. So you could use a reformat or a crop node to increase the canvas size to match our original image here. But what I usually do, because I'm lazy, is I just slap it on top of the image, make sure your background is connected to the B pipe, which automatically gives us the canvas size, and then I use a shuffle node to black out all the channels of my background. And that puts the matte paint patch into context of our format, and we can now see it and compare it to our background like so, or even wipe, and it'll actually be in the correct position.